some points that as a startup probably you want to cover. I mean, it will answer most of the stuff that you are thinking about right now. The financial aspects we'll talk about that. We'll talk about whether you should think about IP at all or not. When you should think about IP. See, intellectual property is not limited to patents or trademarks or copyrights or any of that. We'll talk about some of them. There is something called as intellectual property rights, which is an asset. When you get a patent or a trademark, it becomes an asset, something which you can transact, something which has value. But intellectual property by itself is anything which you do in business is your intellectual property. For example, Flipkart and Amazon all know about those two companies, right? They're pretty similar in what they do. Actually, ex-Amazon employees started Flipkart. So the technology-wise, pretty much they're similar in what they are doing. What is the intellectual property of Flipkart? Intellectual property is anything which gets you revenue, period. In business, intellectual property is anything creative that you do which gets you revenue, differentiates you from your customer, lowers your cost. Any of this, increases your profit margin at the end of the day. Anybody, what is the USP or IP of Flipkart?
The Indian market.
That's market focus. Amazon also can come to Indian market. I mean, that's not a US university. No, shipping. Amazon does free shipping.
No, they ship first. Flipkart ship first.
No, Amazon has one day shipping.
No, they do it personally, right? Flipkart direct shipping is managed by us, not by any third party.
They understand the Indian market and the Indian logistics and the average Indian customer.
Close, but not yet there. I'll tell you what. Good. I mean, all the answers are pretty much close to that. Amazon ships in one day. They have one day free shipping. They also manage their own supply chain and logistics. They have their own companies to do that. Right? What Flipkart is doing different in India is the supply chain logistics in India is very poor. Right? They are managing it well. Number one. Number two, they have something called cash on delivery. India is still a cash-based society. Not everybody uses a plastic card yet. Right? So if you go to my house, my mother is not going to swipe a card because she bought something from Flipkart. She'd prefer to pay some money, and she'd prefer to haggle before she pays money. Why don't you reduce 10 rupees? That tends to be the nature. There's a cultural aspect to doing business in this country, and they have cracked that. That's one of the reasons they have been able to take a large leap ahead compared to their competitors. They're copying. Now Jabot.com and n number of other companies are copying that model. So their intellectual property happens to be the financial transaction part. Because cash transactions are not easy to track. Let's say you have a courier fellow who goes to your customer's house, gives the packet, takes the cash and disappears. Right? What do you do? It's going to be lost. Right? Handling cash is always figuring out how to handle cash is the intellectual property part of it. But I'm not talking about the front end alone. Front end is where they take the cash, but how do they manage the cash? How does it get back to them, their bank account? Right? That is the whole idea, which we don't know. They are not going to tell us either. So, just to give you a flavor that IP can be anything which differentiates you in the marketplace, increases your profit margin. So don't limit your thinking when you say IP means the trademark or patent. Intellectual property is anything creative, any creative endeavor of the human mind is intellectual property. Whether you can predict it or not is a secondary thing altogether. So we talk about three things. Prior art search, which kind of answers that question, whether we should think about intellectual property at all or not. Right? Cost issues will get covered there also. Right? We'll talk about trademarks. Nobody talks about it as a means of protection. But trust me, trademarks are one of the cheapest, fastest way to protect something unique which you are creating. Basically, something which is customer facing. Then we will talk about provisional patent application, which is the finance part of it. Right? As startups, you don't have enough money to survive on a daily basis. They will, spend a lot of money for patents and other things. So this is one, I would say this is one trick you can use to spend very little money at the same time get some protection. So as I was saying, intellectual property rights. When we talk about rights, we're talking about a lot of. This is just some of them. There are 10 more probably. That is protected by law. Someone outside, you can call them. Right. So I'll just quickly, run through some of this. Probably you guys have seen this before, but just to set base, if you want to ask some questions, you can. Oh, sorry. Before we go here, the way I'm structuring this right now is I'll probably talk for another 1 hour or so. Right. You can feel free to ask questions in between. And what we will do is after that I'm here. If you want a personal, discussion, you can just approach me and talk about things that are worrying you right now, or you want some consultation. I'm not charging you. Alright, so feel free to ask questions. It's going to be helpful. Something called plant breeders' right. We all see red roses, right? Yeah, yellow roses, white roses. Ever seen a violet rose? Or a blue rose? I have. These are unique species. They don't exist in nature per se. Somebody created them by crafting, whatever they do with the plant. So those chaps who produce these unique varieties of flowers and other things also need some type of protection. That's plant breeders, right? They have got some type of rights from the unique variety of plants that they do. Copyright, we have heard about it in recent past, thanks to some movies and some writers suing the movie director for some songwriters suing the music director for copyright issue. Basically, anything creative, be it video, music, writing, speeches. Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream, which he gave long time ago, is still protected under copyright by his daughter. So you can't print that speech without taking permission from her. It's interesting. It's a speech. It was given publicly, but the copyright is with the daughter. So when you write a blog post, article or something, right, and you publish it online, it's always better to just put a small symbol below it and say copyright so and so company. There are no specific formats to go and copyright. You can register a copyright in the Copyright Registration Office, Calcutta in India. It's 100 rupees. You can just send your article or something and you can just register. If it's that important to you. If it is not, just having that symbol around it kind of establishes the date of publication and establishes you are the owner more than enough. The copyrights are very, very simple to protect. Just because you publish it, you get the copyright. And they're very long term. For example, a novel or literature, right? The copyright for that lasts 70 years from the date of writing it, right? Or about 60 years from the death of the author or something. So in totality, about 150 years of protection can be seen for copyrights. It's stupid at some level because in the digital era, every day new thing is being created, and every day people can modify. Since very long ago, these laws have been established. So copyright laws are very, very long. Industrial design, it's very interesting. People don't look at it per se, but if you have a product you are selling outside in the public, this is a fine example of industrial. You have seen that case recently, right? Samsung versus Apple. Oh, it's a brick with a rounded corners, and they are suing people. But the fun part is that the simple product, it's known because of its design. The latest avatar, iPhone 5, which came out recently, they don't even mention Apple anywhere. They are not putting Apple or the company's name or iPhone anywhere. Just the design says, okay, this is iPhone. There's a very famous design which we see in our everyday life, but we do not probably notice that it's a design. Do you know what this is?
Coca-Cola.
Perfect. You recognize it immediately, right? Nobody else will use this bottle design. It's protected by Coca-Cola. I mean, they will not allow you to kind of infringe on it or fill your soft drink in this bottle and sell. You can't do that. It belongs to Coca-Cola. Everybody recognizes it as Coca-Cola bottle. Right? This is a very fine example of design which has become so synonymous with the company itself. So rather than design, it's now a trademark. It's a trademark symbol for Coca-Cola, right? It started off as a design. Designs have a limited protection, right? It's a US design actually, but in India also we have registration of designs. It lasts for about 14 years, 1/4. Right? After that it expires. But by then, if the design becomes synonymous with your product, with your company, right? Then you can seek protection forever, pretty much, as a trademark. It becomes a trademark. It becomes a trade name for you, right? This is a trademark. This design itself has become a trademark. Anybody else using it is confusing the public. So, I'll tell you about another design. This is Cadbury chocolate. The way that they cover it's what violet, purple color wrapper and gold foil inside. Golden foil, rather not gold, golden foil. If you see such a chocolate kept on a display, you will immediately say it's Cadbury. Right? You can't confuse it with anything else. So if I tomorrow were to print a new type of chocolate or my own brand in that color, right? You will still think it's Cadbury. If I use the same design of the foil and everything, you still think it's Cadbury. So I'm trying to defraud the public basically. So designs can become very, very synonymous with brands. It's very important to know that. For tech companies that deal with B2B, business to business, if you're selling to other businesses, it may not be that important. If you're selling to public, to the consumer, and you want to be recognized by what you're selling, this is something you should probably look into. The way it is designed, the way people will recognize your product. Trademarks, I just spoke about that in transition. We've seen all these symbols, right? Sometime, somewhere. They're synonymous with certain companies. Even this sound, ding, 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 ding. Heard this? Yeah. Immediately you know what that is, right? Intel has another sound. That bomb, 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 or something like that, right? It is again synonymous with the brand. So trademarks are not limited to the logo or the color alone. They can also be sounds, smells sometimes. The smell of perfume. People are protecting all that. Harley Davidson, the motorcycle, the sound of the engine is actually trademarked. Another company, if they produce by accident also that sound, you will take them to court. So Harley Davidson motorcycles have a specific, very special sound. You know it's a Harley. So those are some of the factors which allow a B2C company, very specifically a B2C company, to protect their identity, to have an individuality, personality. You have a personality, so should your brand, so should your product. That's the whole idea of trademarks. Any question? I mean, if you guys have any question at any point of time, please stop. Immediately ask it. You will wait till the end, okay? You will forget, I will forget, so let's not get into that. Any questions? Interrupt. Patents. Very quickly, I'll tell you about it because it's a very, very vast field. This is what covers the technology. But if you have a new technology, if you have solved a technical problem, issue, then patents is what gives you protection. I mean, it lasts for 20 years from the day you file in the country you file for. Right? So, this can lead to an interesting discussion. I'll quickly ask you. Suppose you have invented something new, right? Okay, he's an inventor, and his product or his invention is something which is unique, good, great for the public, everything. And he applies for a patent and gets it. After 4-5 years, he gets the patent. So he's a monopoly for 20 years. But everybody else in the room requires this technology. Right? Isn't it unfair that one fellow is enjoying it, others are not getting it at all? At some level. What do you think?
No, because the technology is become popular, and after 20 years, they don't can be limited from it.
Possibly, yes. It's correct to say that, but that is how the patents are granted. If you see a patent document actually take it up, when you read it, it should allow you to make that technology. That's the way it should be written. Right? Otherwise, the fellow cannot get it right. Should not be given a right. That's the law. Fairness and unfairness apart, what happens here is this poor fellow might have spent billions of dollars to develop that. He might have spent a few $1 billion to develop the technology itself, and somebody else is going to rip it off. He's losing a lot of money there. And it also motivates everybody else to come with a workaround to this technology. Develop something new rather than copy. In India, for a very long time, we have been doing that. We take from the West, copy it, make it desi, and launch it. It's not a unique technology at all. People say we do great jugaad and all that, put a water tanker behind a tractor and put some 10 taps to it, and we say it's a new irrigation system. No, it's not. It's not scalable. You cannot produce in the industry. It's one-time fix for somebody's problem, but it's not socially useful at all. So actual technology, actual engineering is socially useful. It's scalable, it's manufacturable. So to come up with something, there needs to be a motivation to come up with something. I mean, if this fellow has come up with something new and he's selling it in the market for a profit, it challenges you to come up with something better. You better come up with something better if you want to be in business at all. By copying his stuff, you can't get it. Period. Okay. So all forms of intellectual property, every single form of it, is just for competitive advantage in business. Try to appreciate that fact. It's not to stop the public. It's not to get a monopoly in the market. It's for competitive advantage. You are running a business. Be very clear about it. Running a business means you are running it for profit. Until unless you want to be a non-profit, right? You are running it for profit. And you should do everything possible within the purview of the law of the country to maximize your profits. It might be a capitalistic mentality at some level, but if you are doing business, you are a capitalist. And we will not get into the socialist versus capitalist, good of the country, all that debate right now. It's political, I don't want to go there. But simply enough, if you are running a business, you are doing it for profit. And if you are doing it for profit, you should take care to get every possible advantage that you can. Because there are giant companies out there that just squash you in a second. You need some kind of protection to get ahead in life. Some kind of advantage. Intellectual property tends to be that advantage. So patents are probably the strongest form of protection for a company when it comes to technology. Of course, there is a lot of controversies around it, but then the way things are, you either are in the pool or you're not. You can't say, you can't take a moral stand and say, hey, I don't like patents, so I'll not patent my technology, but at the same time, I want my competition to respect my technology and not steal it from me. That's kind of being naive. You either protect your technology or you get out of the competition. Period. I mean, that's the way things are, unfortunately. Things may change. Right. Before we jump into the next section, a couple of things about intellectual property itself. They are specific to a country. That answers your question. Law of US cannot be applied in India. For a criminal case, for example, right? I mean, if you, or for the sake of it, but if you go to US and commit a crime and run away to India, until unless you are deported back to US, you cannot be prosecuted. Right. Same way, law of US does not apply in India, and vice versa. Law of India does not apply in US. Intellectual property rights are protected by law of a certain countries. Right. So if somebody comes and says, I'll get your world patent, please feel free to slap him or her. Nothing called a world patent exists. There is nothing called a world patent. There is no instrument of law which allows you to file once and get protection all over the world. It doesn't happen.
Sorry, what is the Geneva Convention? There is a treaty, right?
Paris Convention.
Geneva, like, if you sign that, like within 1 year, you can apply to all the countries.
PCT. It's called PCT, Paris Convention.
Yes, yes.
That's an instrument that does not give you protection. See, 164 countries are member of that Paris Cooperation or Convention Treaty. What that means is if you protect your idea in India, right, that will be respected by other countries when you go to those countries. And you'll get a priority. As in, I put a patent in India today, within 12 months I can take it to US. US will respect my rights and say, okay, it is from today's date, not from the date I filed it. And there's another thing called PCT. It's a little complicated, but what that is called so-called patent application, world patent application. It doesn't give you any rights. Suppose you go today and file a PCT, you get 30 to 31 months. 30 to 31 months. That's 2.5 years to go to various countries of the world. So that kind of becomes one document through which you can approach multiple countries. But in each country you have to follow their law. Go through their procedure again. So it's a bargain, right? You kind of save the money for 2.5 years. Instead of going to 100 countries, you file one thing and say, I have this date, right? And after 2.5 years, I'll go to the countries where my business is going well. Makes sense, makes business sense. But you lose on time. This 2.5 years is counted in your final patent, this thing, lifetime. So you only have 17.5 years of lifetime left in any country. So it's kind of a bargain that you have to strike. And it again comes to the strategy. If you're not going for more than 5 countries, at any point in the future, it doesn't make sense. Don't do it. Okay? So yeah, that hopefully answers your question. And it still does not give you a word patent. Any other questions?
Copyright is universally enforceable. Once.
Yes. Majority of the time it is universally enforced. But enforceability, there is a slight trickiness to it. When it goes to a court of law, you need to prove that you are the original author and that it was published on certain date. So it's better to have some kind of dated document. That's why they say, if you think there's something people will steal, it's better you go and register in the copyright registration office. Pay 100 rupees or something and register. Once registered in this country, it can be protected across the world. Could I get some water? Right, let's jump into this. I don't want to waste too much of time. This is important. See, the question of whether you should think about IP or patents or not, right, is complex. And it's complicated by the fact that you guys don't have time. Frankly, if you are a startup and you have enough time to think about these things, then you are not doing enough work. My company is going to be 3 years old this October 1st. That's a great achievement. We have not yet sunk, right? And first 2 years, I hardly slept. I can vouch for it. Even today, I have hardly slept. But that's the way startups are. You hardly have time to think about anything else than what you are focused on. But if you could sleep 1 hour less every week and do this, it would help a long. It will go a long way in helping you decide what's the thing. As you start your process. I'll talk about this in a while, but let's just touch upon research itself. What a startup does is research at some level. If you're developing something new, you're doing research. You need to know what you have to develop, how it has to be developed, right? And what problem you are trying to solve. If you don't have a problem to solve, then it's just you're giving up stuff which is really good, but which may not be sellable at some point of time. So if you have a great idea for breathing underwater, right? Breathing underwater, you have seen those James Bond movies where he sticks some cylindrical object in his mouth. It's fake. It doesn't exist. But if you have something of simplified device and you want to breathe underwater, sounds great. Who will buy it from you? Suppose cost of manufacturing something like this is so high that only 5 people in the world can, afford it. Why would you even think about these things? So, goes back to the question: what are you trying to solve? What is the problem you are actually trying to address? And it's complicated because you start with a certain premises, saying that hey, this is what I want to solve. Then you get into the technology and you say that it's not working. Then you redefine your problem. That's how research works, It's like a spiral. Maybe upward, we don't want to go downwards. So spiral being, you start with a very broad problem and you keep narrowing the focus of the problem till you hit that, if I solve this small thing, everything else will fit into place. Takes time, takes a lot of effort, to get there. I'm talking in very vague terms because I don't have a specific example I can quote for all of you. But we will get into some examples if possible. So what is prior art search mean? Why would you want to do something? You do Google searches. All of us do, right? Not Bing search or DuckDuckGo search or whichever is your favorite search. Has anybody here done a Google search while developing their product? Yes, no, maybe. Yes? What did you search for?
Live stream.
Pardon?
Live stream.
Live stream. In general, did you search for something more specific?
I provide live stream as a service, as a product.
Right.
And there's a product called Cast.
Hmm.
So we are developing a similar product.
Okay, you are developing something similar to what others have done, right? And how will you differentiate yourself? You don't have to get into real details, but then just in general. Is it technology wise? Is it business model wise? Is it country focused? What is it?
It's not country focused.
It's global. Right.
Since the cost is going to be low, but the quality
It's going to be worse.
same.
Or almost same. Same quality at different cost means you are doing either doing some geographical cost arbitrage or some technological cost arbitrage, which means you are producing it at lower cost, or you are by having cheaper labor or by having cheaper technology. Either one of them. Right? So that's one example. That's a business model example. But if you're looking at the product itself and you want to develop the product in depth and you want to differentiate at the technology level, then you will do more digging. You will understand how live streaming works. You will understand how others are doing live streaming. You will understand what the quality implications are. If I change the bit rates, if I change the streaming codecs itself, if I compress it more, can I send it faster? Do it better? If suppose quality is not a problem, I can get away with okay quality, I don't need HD. I don't need high def quality at all. I can get away with pixelated images. That will work in most of the cases. Right? But the technology implication that you can do it cheaper. How do you do it cheaper is something which you need to explore. That's research. Nothing else but research. Explore. If you're figuring out how to solve this issue. So you can keep asking this question, okay, I've established a kind of a frame rate, or I've established what type of quality of video I want or screen quality I want at the end of the day. Now I'll work backwards from there and try to understand what the problems are if I do this. Right? Or you start with the premises saying that hey, in India, internet is very poor. We don't have good internet connectivity, which basically means that if I were to do something which is very heavy on the infrastructure, people will not appreciate it much. If I'm doing Skype video call, let's say Skype video call across the continent, and every 2 minutes, this frame freezes up because my internet is basically sucks. And they say 2 Mbps and I get hardly 100, not even 100. I get 12 kbps connection. You're stuck. You're totally stuck there. Why? Because of lack of infrastructure. So your product better fit into my model of my way of doing things. I'm the customer. I have to get a job done, but I have limited resources. So can you give me a solution for those limited resources? That's where your technology questions begin. That hey, I want to do it at this bandwidth. I want to give them okay quality video. I want to ensure that the frame